All right, what's going on? What's going on? Happy Friday. This is not the view. All right, we go. All right, so of course we already had our PC price index. Saw a little bit of volume come in there. And then everybody's watching what Powell is going to do today for the Jackson Hole Fed meeting. And that's pretty much where we are today in terms of like just news or economic events. Got to figure out what I'm trying to do with my monitors. All right, so that's from a news standpoint. So we can see that this is NQ. Up until that point, we really didn't have any movement. Had a little bit of selling during the London session. Hung around during the New York Stock Exchange pre-market until that 8:30 report. Caused some volatility, caused some volume. Now we're starting to push long with a little bit of momentum. This is not the typical momentum that you will see before, during this time frame. So this is completely based off of that economic news. They just using, not necessarily that news that meant anything other than that was an opportunity for price to move. And so, that's pretty much where we are right now. That's creating new session highs. Got some volume building right above PR plus 1. Let me real quick look at the daily perspective. Yesterday we had this we had this previous range back here plus a pivot, and then earlier this week we rested on that area, the area of quote unquote support. I'm calling that a lift zone. And then we had the run up yesterday, and they're painting the picture to continue that trend. So we'll see how today plays out. Not really going to speculate beyond that. Get a look at what the rest of the market is doing. And in all of that, I had I would say my worst trading week of the year. I just making a ton of, I don't know what's going on. I just made a ton of mistakes this week, and it was costly. Part of it was me trying to, well, not necessarily trying to, but just going to the next level. Every time I go to a next level, that's predicated by a series of mistakes and just struggle. So, there's that. So similar thing with ES. ES is a little bit more inside of its bull zone. Let me look at that one more time. I don't know why ES takes so long to load on Sierra chart for me. RTY just comes right up. Similar to ES, and then YM. All the way up to PR plus 4. But shared sentiment across the board. Just everything except NQ, it has pushed further into its bull zone. These other ones never really spend any time in the bear zone. But overall, that's just the perspective from the power range. But the same sentiment across the board. interesting price action from crude. But crude oil is also at a daily pivot, also known as daily resistance. Just a bunch of up and down, back and forth. I wouldn't really call this, this is, complete. I'm looking at this as range. I wouldn't call it direction and none of that. Let's see what GC is doing. Somewhat similar to the indices, but not a whole lot of movement there, mostly selling. I think that's the only thing that's red on the board today. 8.7 this point drop. And EDS 6E is going above and beyond the moon. So, but that started with a very small range. So that's just a little perspective. The opening range was tiny. Had a little bit of sell-off, little dip, and then we've just been running up ever since the London session. Took a bit of a break there for some retracement during the New York Stock Exchange pre-market, and it's also seeing a bullish response, or getting a bullish response to that 8:30 news, along with the other indices. Also, kind of at its daily support. So that's just the outlook across the board. And I'm not trading today. Partly, I was kind of planning on not trading today, just because of how everybody's making a big deal about the Jackson Hole thing. So no telling how they will try to use the proverbial they will try to use that information or that event. But also mainly because I just traded so horribly this week. It doesn't make sense for me to trade even if I wanted to. So not gonna lie, just a moment of transparency. I almost decided not to do the stream. The emotional roller coaster, but I made a commitment, so I'm gonna stick to it. Let's see. However, I may take some sim positions just to get some practice in, and that's what I'm going to be doing over the weekend. So it's kind of a good opportunity or creates a good space to talk about. Let me see, we got 15 minutes to the bell. I got plenty of time. Well, I say my process for recovering from just series of poor trading. So I kind of want to go over. So Monday, I think we saw what happened Monday. I got to go over that. And then Tuesday, I don't know where my head was. I just couldn't get it right. Kept hitting the wrong button, and then I just kept making a whole lot of mistakes. I wasn't executing the way I was supposed to, and I was aware of it. And I just couldn't get back on the right side of things. So I eventually ended that day red. Did much better the following day. My execution was on point for the most part, and I wasn't making nearly as many mistakes. I don't think I made any mistakes. I just didn't have the best entry or whatever on my initial moves. But so Wednesday went good, and then Thursday. So Thursday, the way I was reading it in the moment, I felt like I was, it was mostly the market and not me, until I went back and looked at it and saw that it was the market. I mean, it was that was me making the mistakes. Now, what's key there is or what I'm taking away from that is that anytime where I can say that it was me making the mistakes and not the market, that, you know, to me, that's putting the ball in my court, and that's something that I can do about that. So that's you know, it is what it is in terms of what the P&L and what happened, the results. But the fact that it was me making mistakes and that I can do something about that, that's a positive thing. So, you know, that's, as long as I can say that it was me that was, you know, the issue, then that gives me a positive outlook on, you know, where I can go from there. So with that, from there, so like if it's just like one day and it's like a one-off event, I will keep trading, you know, well, I'll stop for that day, right? And then I'll come back the next day and I'll just try to get back on the right side of things. But if it's just happening in a row, then I have to give myself some time off, some space away from it. But at the same time, so what I'm gonna do this weekend is I'm gonna go through and it's a lot of my mistakes are just skill. Like, I just need to sharpen my saw, so to speak. So I'm just gonna go run through some drills, and I'm gonna treat it like an athlete. And, you know, that's the way that I kind of look at my trading. So I'm also noticing, I don't know if, yeah. So I think it looks like somehow I painted my power range here different than I painted it on the other. Oh, okay, because it's a difference. So that's another thing I noticed this week too. I think that was Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday, to where M&Q had these wicks where NQ didn't. So it gave me a different power range perspective between M&Q and NQ, and it looks like we have the same thing today. Our power range, my neutral zone is much wider. So that's just something that I want to keep in mind. Appreciate that, Origin. Thanks for the motivation, because I remembered I was definitely thinking about not doing it, but you know, I remember our conversation we had the other day, so I definitely had to stick to it. But anyway, my plan is to make sure that I, you know, go back to mitigating the mistakes before I actually start back trading in live accounts. That's my plan moving forward. So we'll see how this weekend goes. But as of right now, we're just waiting for the open. Got about 10 minutes to go. And I'll get some of that practice in right now, or to, you know, at the open, but in sim mode. I feel like I have a lot of time because I ran through everything early this morning. Alright, I did all my checklists. Not a whole lot's happening on the charts right now. We're just retracing a little bit from that bull run, or that rally. While we wait, just running, brain dumping some more. So if, like with this, like the PM, like when I have these little drawdowns, the P&L to me is not really what affects me the most, So me being I'm somewhat of a perfectionist, and so like for me, making mistakes is so much worse. So it's a case by. It's gonna be, everybody's not the same. I see a lot of traders who don't care about making mistakes. They care much more about their P&L and the results they get there and what their numbers say. But me, I don't care what the numbers say, as long as I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's just, that's my frequency. That's the perfectionist in me. I've been that way since awareness of my existence. Which is key to knowing, when you're trying to operate in this environment, you must know who you are. You must know yourself. And like I always say, great trades come from within. So Powell is supposed to speak at 10. I wouldn't really expect a whole lot, in the first 30 minutes of the open. Just a lot of back and forth. We'll see how, what they want to do. Then I would expect to see a spike at 10. Just on the humans are creatures of habit type of thing. Which makes this environment, an environment for retail to participate in. Which I feel like that's a loaded topic. I'm not going to get into all of that. That's just going to take me down a whole road that I don't feel like exploring at this moment. And normally I don't usually do a whole lot of analyzing the pre-market. I just get the overall sentiment and then the perspective from the power range, which will give me my trade bias. And then I just expect for the ranges to be open after the bell. This is how normally how my mornings go. I just do a real quick analysis, gather the sentiment, and then I just wait for the open. I really a lot of times I spend this time actually clearing my mind, which is probably what's triggering all this brain dumping right now. This is the time. This is actually me going through my process of just getting my mind clear and being ready for the open. But normally that happens through a meditation, not so much of a verbal output. And then when the influencers in this space get on talk about these things that help, it's not a 100% thing. So just because I ran through, just because the meditation works and it works for me on the normally or in general or usually, it doesn't mean it's always going to work. So I've meditated before, and before I traded a session and still just had a hard time. I meditated both days that I was struggling, and I still had that result. It's just, but those things, it doesn't mean that it's good or bad. It's just It can be part of your plan, part of what you do, part of your routine. And when it works, it works. And it's great. And when it doesn't, it doesn't. It's just, it is what it is. I don't look at things really being good or bad anyway. Everything just is what it is. What's good, Wes? So we got about 3 minutes. 3.5 minutes. Continuing the retracement. Got a hot zone between 150 and 140. And the other day I did kind of mention getting away from the terms buying and selling. So if you hear me say lift or lift zone or lift anything, and I'm talking about buying, what people would refer to as buying. And I may say drop or something like that, or markdown or discount. That usually, so discount, I'm usually referring to a descending channel. So if I just start getting into the language that I'm into, my language, then just, you know, as awareness, that's what I'm talking about. And of course, by this point, y'all know what I mean by wholesale. I think I should have other videos where I'm talking about that. I think I did talk about that in the futures trading course. Which goes along with inventory and supply. Inventory being support, supply being resistance. Think about it, the way that those terms are used, lift would actually be support, and then drop would be resistance, and then inventory is demand, and supply is supply. Everybody knows what supply is. And we got about a minute for the open. And on that note, if you see me place a trade here, it's a good time for a disclaimer. If you see me place a trade here, I would highly advise that you not follow my trades, especially since with me making all the mistakes, you don't know if I'm making a mistake or not if you're just blindly following my trades. So trade your strategy. Your trading is your responsibility. This is just for entertainment and educational purposes only. Some of the best lessons that I've ever received was from other people's mistakes, or from other people doing things in a way that I didn't think it should be done. So I would highly recommend in this space learning from other people's mistakes. If you see someone making a mistake, or doing something that you think they shouldn't be doing based off of, whatever it is, I would highly recommend leaning into that and digging deep into and finding the truth, whatever that means to you, from other people's mistakes, as well as what they do, quote unquote, right. And we are open, so let's see what we get. I'm gonna go quiet on the mic for a minute and just observe. Continuing to break down, broke down below VWAP. Got a quick little retest of VWAP. I also have a key area down at 110. If we make it down there, did front run that area, but that was a volume response at 120. Back to 120. Let's see if we catch lift. Quick response off 120. Painting the picture, they keep breaking down. Gather some more inventory right there at 120. All the way back to VWAP. Releasing some supply. All right, we're marking up price. We are still below what I have identified as an algo, and we're trying to push through that now. We have this heat zone between 150 and 140 still. Catching a lot of lift through there. Back into previous supply at 150. Quick dump of supply and our hot zone and right back to 150. Macro perspective gave a we're catching immediate lift right again off of 150. So I'm just seeing this right now. It's just some more inventory collection. I'm probably gonna go quiet again. I'm gonna catch a little bit of practice. It is really difficult to trade and talk at the same time. Like, you know, in terms of, so if I do it by myself, I don't really have that much of a problem. But it's just when if I'm turned on the camera, if I'm talking to someone, and it's difficult to do both at the same time. It's probably why you don't see a lot of people actually doing, you know, live streaming while they're trading. Missing the window, but that's all good. Then the technical difficulties. There we go. All right. Back to VWAP. Also me practicing this morning. Some of that is also testing out a theory that I had yesterday. So once again, good time to say, I can see that it looks like my trades are being recorded, so do not follow my trades. There is some testing involved right now. Oops. So we're not seeing a whole lot going on right now, just as expected. Just a bunch of wholesale ranging. Got this wholesale range between, we back at supply right now, but wholesale range between 144 and 120-ish. Of course, they will eventually move price outside of this. Just a matter of when and where. Or when and, yeah, I said that right. When and how. And where to. 144 is serving as supply again. Back inside the inventory at 120. Yeah, well, push to the lows of that inventory range. Let's see over there's a nice little push below it. Get below 110, that'll be interesting. Nope, push right back inside the wholesale range. Let's see if we actually go back to supply. Test the top of that inventory zone before we call the drop. A little bit of a volume gap right there around 118. That's where we keep stalling at. See if we lower the inventory range, or if we are trying to set a trend for a discount. We also have an algo sitting around VWAP. That's your late response by me. Something. It's not gonna make sense to you, but I gotta verbalize it. I want to lock and load every single time. Going back to our lower inventory of 110. Let's see how far we make it. We do. This is a range. I would call the top of that range 115. But we are seeing a response inside of that volume gap. About 10 minutes until the event that everybody has their eyes on. So, me saying that there's a level of awareness that I feel like is important, but at the same time, kind of don't want to put too much energy into. I don't want to, you don't want to feed the energy of certain things. I'm kind of back and forth on that. Because there's a predatory nature to it, and you don't really want to feed the predator, but you do need to be aware of the predator. I think that's the best way to say it. Now we're just continuing to mark down price or continue to discount. We're discounting. Got a mix of volume down here around PR. What's that? PR minus 1? Yeah, PR minus 1. Get into the low of that 830 volatility spike. Expected response. Typically don't usually expect V-shaped bottoms, but that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Price did previously kind of stall for a brief second at PR minus 1. And we're once again seeing a response there. Catching lift. Back to that previous drop. Nice lift off of PR minus 1. That is painted for a continuation, but into that previous inventory of 110. Pushing above that inventory of 110. Many times those turn into supply. Price is stalling here for the moment. Good place for an algorithmic response. way that printed, wouldn't be surprising if the price continued from there. They're painting the picture to continue marking up price. So we did get that V bottom that I rarely expect. Response off of VWAP. This has been a key area of interest, that 120 area. This is why we're getting a stall here now. Volume is increasing there. Must be a little bit of a battle there, trying to push through VWAP. They painted that for a continuation. They do love to paint pictures for traps. Markup continues, but not before a brief drop. We are seeing a response around 140. The volume push around 140. We did get a lift off 130, so if we get back down there, our response is expected. So now we're just ranging between 140 and 130. Question now is, do we get a supply dump? They're actually kind of using these whole numbers, these 10-point numbers, as of right now, pretty consistently. After a while, it gets kind of easy to see the habitual nature of the way they move price. But the question always remains is, how long are they going to stay in that habit before they move to the next program? We got about 2 minutes before 10. once again at 140. Feels like the quiet before the storm. And another drop initiated there at 140. Starting to pick up a bit. Back to where we previously caught some more inventory. And then another lift. Do we get lift off or do we find a drop zone? Is what I'm looking at this point. And there's the volatility, just like clockwork. Literally right on time, almost as if it was programmed to be that way. Got some interesting wicks there below 115. Nothing to make a decision off of for me. Just maintaining. What am I trying to say? Remaining. There you go. Remaining an observer here. Pushing right through that. So we'll be looking at the whole number 100, which they used as a area of interest before. Quite a quick drop off of 100. So right now the areas of interest are 100. It's clear to see it's at 100 and say 155, 157-ish. Now this is painted as a discount, aka descending channel. We're strongly discounting price at this point. Discount continues. Quick lift off of the whole number of 13,000. Tiny range around 120. We're just getting a quick little rebalance. Don't expect it to stay here for that long. that energy. We gotta settle things out and rebalance ourselves before we continue on with the next movement. Really tight range there. Those are small range. I usually like to avoid them. With my trade bias would have me short there around 120. I mean, about 120, around 20, 1320. Back to the whole number, 13,000. Quick dip below it before catching lift. Of course, that's going to be a key lift area of interest. Anyone looking to go long. And if I'm short, that'll be, with that in mind, I will also be looking to cover there. Place to test the theory. I realized the benefit also in my previous sequence of execution. Of actually participating in the test theories, even if I'm doing it in sim. That's a way for me to actually focus on what is, what's happening. Sometimes things can get slow, and it'd be easier to get distracted when things are slow and you're not participating. But if you're inside of a trade, it doesn't matter how slow you are. How slow things are. You're gonna focus on it. Usually. That's clapping at me. That broke down. I think I need to change some settings in my Sierra chart. Made the lift off there as expected off of the whole number of 13,000. And now we're just seeking a new area to range in. Almost forgot about my theory testing. Drop zone around 1365. Let's see if we hold it or we decide to discount off of that. I like this price action because it's allowed me to fully test out the theory that I had. But for a lot of people, pretty sure that sentiment is not shared across the board. It's a very interesting 3-minute perspective that they painted, or that the price action painted. We're just running up at this point. Did take price above 160, but we have, that's above this area's value area high. So volume really tapers off pretty heavily above 160. I think we're going another run. Right now we're dropping off at 160. We're still playing around VWAP for our lift. I can only imagine reactions that are being, echoed around the market from what we just witnessed. And I'm not, what I expected. I wouldn't expect anything less from this environment. I think we look at the other. But in all of that, I actually appreciate them because it gave me the opportunity to fully test out a theory. I didn't have to wait on it and wait for a good day. It gave me the environment that I needed immediately. Flipping the perspective, changing the narrative. Now that wild price action, I can actually see some consistency. Doesn't mean it'd be, easy to trade, but I do see some consistency as I look at my watch list. So that value area high served as a decent drop zone. Push this back below VWAP. Got a new discount area, or a new sequence of discounting. And with it being a Friday and how things are playing out, wouldn't be surprised to see a range throughout the rest of the session. But anything can happen. That's, if I'm gonna give a probability between the trio of bull, bear, or neutral, I would say the highest probability is neutral. But they've created a really wide, an extremely wide range. Them to do, to give a lot of opportunity to play around in. So now in hindsight, I'm getting to it more, towards the end of my trading window. But in hindsight, I'm actually glad I pushed through the emotional roller coaster that I was feeling earlier, and got it in. There's a benefit of, even if you don't really trade or have no plans to trade that day or a certain day, there's still a benefit of just watching and observing. This arena becomes a thing of, it's just like sports. So the more time you spend watching game tape and practicing and working on your skills and working on your, the mental side of the game and working on yourself, most importantly, one of the most important things that you can do in all facets. But let's just stick to the athlete side of this, the athletic analogy. Let me get my words right. Sticking to this athletic analogy. If you want to have a long, successful career, the main thing you will want to do is make sure you take care of your body. No matter how skilled you are, doesn't matter how, the IQ that you have, if you're not healthy, if you're not taking care of yourself, it's not going to do you much good in the long run. Where you have athletes who take really good care of their bodies, they have mediocre talent, but they end up having more, more successful careers than players who don't take their body, that self-care as serious, and extremely talented, but they don't take their self-care as serious, and they have really short careers and, a lot of failed dreams and all of that. So first and foremost, you need to make sure you're operating from within, and then, coming into this, doing the work, getting your execution, your repetition, what am I trying to say? Repetition in, and showing up. I've benefited a lot just by showing up, just like today. Because I was actually thinking about going and, speaking of sports, I was thinking about going and playing some basketball this morning instead of trading or, but I actually, locked in and decided to focus on the charts. And now here we are, and it ended up being the perfect situation that I needed for my plan for today. Persistence is key in this environment. So we're continuing with this little discount phase, this discount sequence. If I was to be watching this, or as an outlook for the rest of the session, definitely will be paying attention to 13,180 but that's a wide range, it's a huge range, but I'll be paying attention to 13,180 as low as 13,140, as the top of this range, and then the low would be the whole number of 13,000, as high as maybe 1320. And everything in between that is just free play. So of course, price, typically price is just not going to shoot straight to these areas of interest. You're going to bounce back and forth. But those are the areas of interest that I'll be paying attention to. We're actually getting towards that 1320 pretty quickly. But it wasn't a straight line shot, so we are seeing a lift right before that at 1340. If I was holding a bit short position right there, I'll be looking to front run that 1320, knowing that that's a key area, and which is why we're seeing this lift right here at 1340. So on that note, with all that being said, I appreciate everybody that came through. Appreciate you for showing up. Hope y'all all have a good weekend, and I will see y'all on Monday. Trade it easy.